Genesis 7, verse 4, in which we continue the report of God's speech to Noah, getting him ready for the flood to come. Eti gar he meron hepta, ego epago hueton epi ten gain, tesseraconta he meras, ke tesseraconta nuktos. And then we'll get to the rest of the verse here in a minute. Begin with the interesting syntax here. This eti gar, of course, gar is post-positive, so that makes sense. Eti typically means yet or still, but it's followed by hemeron in the genitive, and then hepta, which means 7, modifying that, so this is 7. And so most would argue that this is a way in which the translator is capturing the slightly idiosyncratic way that this verse begins in Hebrew as well, trying to capture the time frame. So we'd say something like, in 7 days, or even perhaps after 7 days. So God is saying, okay, here's the time frame upon which you have to get on the ark, and then here's when I'm going to do stuff, right? So he's given him 7 days to gather all the animals in his family. Then after that, ego epago, of course, epago is to bring upon, just a first singular present there. What's he going to bring? Huetos here, and the accusative there, that is rain. And he's going to bring it upon the earth. Now, this is a callback, arguably, to Genesis chapter 6 in verse 17. Same verb is used, epago. But in that situation, when God is declaring the basic idea of judgment, it was katakluzman hudor, a flood, namely a flood of water. And now we see a little bit more specificity that is going to come through, of course, the agency of rain. And it's upon the earth, very sort of maximal scope there, although there is, of course, debate about that. How long is the rain going to last? Tesseraconta hemeras, that is 40 days. And then tesseraconta nuktas, that would be 40 nights. So that's how long the rain's going to last. Of course, that's not, the flood will be much longer than that. And let's continue. Ke exalepso pasantein ex anastasin hen epoiesa apoprosopu tes geis. It's kind of interesting stuff here. The verb, the kai there is just continuing this sense of what God's going to do. Now we pivot from a present of the ago verb to exalepso. This is going to be a first singular future active indicative with that C there, where the square stops has happened with the phi becoming a C with the future sigma. And this means to wipe out. And we're going to wipe out pasantein ex anastasin. Now that verse, or that noun there, is really quite tricky. The underlying word here, anastasis, is probably familiar. That is the word in the New Testament, at least, often for resurrection or a rising up. But with the ek on the front end, this, as far as I can tell, is the only time it happens in the sort of main Greek text of the Septuagint. And it is, at least the Masoretic is the, it's a ha here plus the yakum. Now, kum is the typical verb for to raise something up. So I was scratching my head about what exactly this word means. I decided to consult the lexicon. So let's take a look first at the Lust Einical Hausby. I covered this in a prior video. And you'll notice that it does show up only once in the Rolf's text. And here's how they gloss it. The getting up the creature, or all the work that I cause to spring up all my creatures. So even as you sort of look at those different options, you can realize that they're struggling themselves to try to figure it out. Now, the causing to spring up or the getting up, that's pretty influenced by the kum verb in Hebrew. But I think they're on the right track here. The basic idea is that God has caused life, both animals and plants and so forth, to arise from the earth. So this is a way sort of to capture all that. What about Miriaka? He doesn't give us a gloss. He gives us a definition here. The substance that came into existence. And again, it's only Genesis 7:4 as our example. And so he's leaning more in the direction of not so much stuff that has sprung up out of the ground, but everything that God has made, something to that effect. So good luck trying to figure out a one-word gloss of that. I think probably most would say something like the creatures, even though it's not technically that word in the Greek. Now, we have a little relative clause here. This hain here is referring back to the ex anastasis because it's feminine. So which, and then epoiesa here, of course, is the first singular aorist, apoieo. So this is really kind of parenthetical, if you will, modifying that. And he's going to wipe them out, apa prosoputes geis, from the face of the earth. Now, this lepho verb here may also remind us of Genesis 6:7, which is an earlier form of God's decision to destroy creation. There, it's a different prepositional prefix. It's apolepso, but it's still basically the same gloss. See the connection there. I will wipe out. In that situation, he was wiping out man. But we also have a very similar relative clause to the hein epoiesa, but it's masculine there because anthropos is masculine. And we have the exact same prepositional phrase, from the face of the earth. And so there's kind of a callback to that as well. I'll also mention that this use of poieo, referring to everything, not just mankind, maybe that's an echo back to Genesis 1, where the chief verb for the creative activity of God in the original creation is poieo. It shows up 12 times. And I've made this argument already in Genesis 6 that along the way in Genesis 6, 7, 8, and 9, we have a lot of references back to Genesis 1 because this is in effect a incursion of divine wrath, a resetting of creation. A lot of the language from Genesis 1 is being reused because essentially we are rebooting creation now, in effect, with a kind of new Adam named Noah here and his sons to repopulate the earth. So just wanted to point that out, that maybe there's a tie back with this poieo to Genesis 1. So Genesis 7:4 in the books. Thanks.